Why don't we?
No, we're on the air.
All
We're
right.
starting right now. Sorry. No, go ahead.
I was
Tell me,
just
what
gonna
did
say,
you
why
want
don't
to
we
say
look up and figure out what the actual episode number is before we start the video?
31.
Oh, I think we got to maintain tradition and have no clue what episode
All
we're on.
right.
Episode. It's not really relevant. I mean, anyone who's going to watch these is going to want to watch them all in a row, so they'll know
They're going to
what
search
number
for
we're
my
on.
room, if anything.
All right, welcome to like the 5 billionth Mazecast show. Tonight we're going to be talking about Room 23. I've been admonished by all the other members of the group not to say anything about the room because Gaming Night, who has not been tainted by a lot of our theories and solutions on the abyss, is going to tell us what he thinks about the room. So I'm going to turn it over to Gaming Night, and if there's any need for questions or intervention, then Beals is going to handle it. I'm just going to sit over here and drink my tea. Take it away, gentlemen.
All right, fair enough. So, Gaming Night, you want to lead off with any thoughts, anything you've noticed so far?
Well, this room, after I basically got through the descent of the maze and started working my way trying to get back through the maze, and being that I've kind of noticed some stuff on this one. There's actually quite a lot of imagery going on and clues to the right path to take on this one. For one, it says everything right is nothing. The time is. I interpret it as door 19 being wrong, but and then also there's the coat rack with the two gloves on it.
I'm sorry, let me stop you. I want to ask, how is it that you get that pointing to door 19 specifically as being wrong?
Well, I just saw that like it's broken glass, so it's like, it's like, I don't know, it's like, and then like it's and then the shadow is pointing towards the when the coat rack's pointing to the commandments there.
Yep.
That's why I guess they would be the 10 Commandments. There's 7, 8, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and the only one on the only rooms that it has on there's 8 is the 8, which is for the 8th, which is the true path from the Commandments. But you could also get like I could think this like the mitts has actually like baseball gloves, and maybe a pitching error would be with that door on the frame over there.
Ah.
And then if you
think of that.
And if you count the little squares, you get 8, and then where the little there's like a little check mark, so you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 8th glass is broken, so there's that. And then he said, see. Then there was the about raining, and that one room was room I believe it was 42.
The one that they're talking about in the text.
Yeah.
42. Yeah,
So,
which I think Vince is going to pull up a comparison with.
Oh, what am I pulling up?
Oh, you don't have to do it right now, but I just saw that you're bringing up
Yeah.
42.
oh.
No, go on, give me that. Go.
And then also the pictures on the wall, you got for the moon, you got the moon and like 7 stars. So you can also get 8 from that as well. So that's why I figured 8 would be the correct door to go into for the next path.
Yeah, that's good. That's really solid. I think we all probably feel really great about that 10 Commandments solution, and it's cool that you put it together yourself. Does anybody not feel that that's really solid?
I like his stars. I like his thing about the stars, right? Because you got 7 stars, and then the sun is a star as well, so that could count as the 8th star.
Oh, you want to count the sun as the actual star being what it is?
That would work too. That would work too.
He was saying there's 7 stars over 45, and then he said you could count that as 8. Maybe he was counting the moon, but I would
count it, or you can just count the sun as another star, which would be 8. Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Nobody's mentioned that before, Gaming Night. That's awesome.
That's on the abyss.
Ah, okay, maybe it is.
People have counted the moon and the 7 stars together. I don't think anybody.
Right. They haven't counted 8 stars by counting the sun and not the moon. That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, about the Ten Commandments, everybody feels good about that. I think White Raven suggests that that solution is incomplete, but I can't think of any way to improve that. It's very straightforward, and
He's
I
gonna
think
have to
they
tell
nailed it.
us. He's gonna have to enlighten us.
What's that?
I don't think there's anything more to that. If he thinks there's more to that, he's gonna have to enlighten us on what that is.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's that the solution isn't sufficient by itself, because it is. I think it's that there's supposed to be something else that's suggestive of the same thing, or maybe that points those two together. I don't know. But yeah, that does seem to be pretty rock solid. I think that's one of the better clues we've got in the entire book. Like, that's something I'd be comfortable showing to a stranger and saying, like, this is the kind of thing that clues which room you're supposed to go to, and not be embarrassed about how much we're stretching the text or some far-fetched interpretation. Like, that seems to be a legit puzzle.
Yeah, the fact that Gaming Night was able to solve it independently, I think, is good evidence of that.
Yeah, now Gaming Night, I heard you use the phrase pitch error. Have you been reading Gentile's website?
No. My fiance and I bounced off some stuff today.
Yeah,
Okay.
he came up with pitch error as well. I don't know that I agree with anything that he tried to do with it, but you're not the only person to get that phrase out of the fiction.
Well, that's miraculous.
But I mean, my fiance, we bounced off stuff earlier.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, you just going over stuff with him.
All right. Anything else? Anything from the text, or are we moving on to the next stage of the game here? Maybe I should have specified who I was trying to get a response from there. Well, let's go ahead. Although, really, I think that kind of touched on everything in the room and sort of the ideas we had for everything in the room. Though not so much with the text. But yeah, 8 is the correct door. This is on the path. Gaming Night, I'm curious, is this a room that you've reached yourself in going through Maze from the beginning?
On the second, I got through some of it, and then I recorded some of me going through the maze recently. So.
Yeah, I saw that right before I started this up. I had a notice saying that you'd recorded another video of going through the maze.
Yeah, I uploaded it last night. It didn't go, so I re-uploaded it this afternoon when I got off work.
But have you reached this room before? Anytime when you were going through maze?
Off camera, yes.
Okay. See, this is a room that people don't get to right away, because you can only get to it after you've made it to 45 and you're on the way out. So this is one of just a handful of rooms that are kind of locked off until you find the secret entrance and get to 45, which is important for the last room where it says door they've been seeking for so long, the entrance to, which I'm pretty sure is just there to throw off people who are flipping through the book without following the doors and just trying to figure out how to get to 45. Because if you're just flipping through it looking for entrances that go to 45, you're going to see that. It certainly strongly suggests that this is the way you're supposed to go into 45.
Right, and then if you're looking for doors to 23 throughout the path, then you won't find them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's related to 29, how the door to 17 is hidden. So you have to figure out the hidden door before you can figure out 23.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was a pretty neat little room with that hidden door.
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely got that on camera, so getting that.
Oh, you got it on camera when you discovered it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that is pretty good. We're going to have to watch that. I tried to make a lot out before of the fact that he's talking about room 8 when he says they found the door they've been seeking for so long, because like the path is laid out like a figure 8 if you map it out, and so I tried to say there's something really special about the number 8. But really, I think I'm doing too much with that. I really think it's as simple as that phrase is there just to throw off people who are trying to get to 45 by cheating, sort of. And I think it's pretty effective doing that. And it goes right along with Room 17, where the text admonishes you that you shouldn't take the obvious, suggesting that going to 45 there is not the correct route, when in fact it is. In the same way, 23 has text suggesting that you should be going to 45 when you should not. I think both of them just kind of work together to throw off people who are mapping the thing out.
On a related note, is this the only room where the guide makes a specific suggestion? And could that tie into your theme of don't accept what the guide says at face value? I can't think of another room where he gives them a paper.
I can't think of another room where he suggests a door. No.
Yeah. There's the statue of room 27 where it says, I herded the group through the door, where it kind of seems like he's taking the initiative, but that's sort of ambiguous. Like they might have already chosen that door or something. But
yeah, and 39 kind of has the same thing where it says he ushered them through the door, I think.
Sure. There's a little bit of that. I don't know if another one.
Well, there's the door on my right as well. This is the room right here.
Yeah. It's interesting though how like the umbrella has been like a reference for quite a bit of this books and stuff. The umbrellas and the rain.
Well, yeah, that's another thing in this room. This is unusual, but let's start going through the text first with this one, because I think this is one where the text is really heavy with meaning and references to other rooms, and I think it might be easier actually to discuss what's in the room after we've discussed what's in the text. So let's build right what you just mentioned. This is one of a few rooms that mentions the possibility of rain coming. Another similar statement is in room 10, where they do actually take an umbrella because it might rain where they're going. In room 6, once that's in the trap, they note that it actually looks like it is raining outside, but they can only see through a small hole in the roof. I haven't heard from anyone, and it's not clear to me what exactly rain means in the maze. I mean, it seems to be suggestive of something bad, I guess, but I don't know exactly how to read it or what to do with that.
Yeah.
Now, it makes reference to they should have brought the bumbershoot with them from the coat room.
Yeah, which is the one with that false witness bear in there. The sinners and saint one.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it says we should have brought that bumbershoot with us from the coat room. Which room was that? You remember, the one with the animal. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing, at least for me, was that when I first saw this room as a kid, it didn't click to me that it was referring to any specific room. I thought that both those things were meant to be generic because there are a lot of animals in the house and there are a lot of umbrellas in the house. It actually took a minute before I actually looked through the book enough to say there's only one room that has an umbrella and an animal in it, and of course that's room 42. And so, and it's fairly describable as the coat room because it has a coat rack with coats in it, and the guide even suggests that they leave their coats in that room. So there is a really strong connection between this room and room 42 in the text. I don't know why. I think I've made some suggestion of why that might be.
Why don't you bring up that picture you showed me earlier on today where you spliced the two together?
I'm going for it.
You look like one major room.
Yeah. Let me open that up.
Oh, yeah, see, that'd be kind of interesting. See that.
Yeah. Sort of mirror images of each other. They got the same doors. They got the same sort of layout. It's from the same perspective, and I think that's the most important part. Is always the perspective. You mentioned in other episodes on how things cover things in certain perspectives, but not in others. Anyway, there it is.
There does seem to be something very deliberate about the way they're laid out there. and then they make such heavy reference to each other. And of course, room 42 makes reference to an animal being in the corner that doesn't really match. The description they give in the text doesn't match the description of the bear that's actually in the room. But we know there's an animal in the corner, but then, we only see one corner of the room, and then we don't get to see the right wall. In 23, we've got another room similarly laid out with where we can't see one of the walls. The floorboards are actually fairly similar to the floorboards in 42, but they're going another direction. The style of the doors is different. The wall trim is different, but the doors are all about the same height. The dimensions of the room seem to be the same. Like, it looks to me somewhat like he traced out the same, I don't know what you would call it, but like corner and floor plan in the two rooms, but then just drew things differently from there. But even the wallpaper looks essentially the same to me, except that it's a little darker in 23 where the sun's not hitting it, but it seems to be a different time of day. And actually, I don't know if you look at the way the shadows are going, whether that would be consistent with the door. I don't know where you'd have to place the door for that to make sense to put the two rooms together. It's probably not necessary. But you can also see we've got the pictures at the top of the screen that seem to be hung up at the same level.
And there's that clear similarity with the bottoms of the pictures depicting feet. That's really hard to miss.
Yeah, so there's something really interesting going on with these two rooms, and I don't know that we've really figured out what it is. One thing I've suggested is in 42, and it's important to note, you have to have gone through 42 at this point to have gotten to 23. You can't get to 23 without going through 42, so it's not like there's anything unfair here where you might get to 23 and not have gotten the information you need from 42 first. You have to have learned what you learn in 42. Now, in 42, the guide makes a statement about them leaving their coats in the room, suggesting that they're not going to need the coats where they're going. And then when we get to 23, there's a reference again to room 42. Now, if you take those together and read that as a room, or you're going someplace where you're not going to need your coat. 28, it shows the rain cloud overhead with raining down. 45 shows a nighttime scene, which I think are both suggestive of times when you would want to wear a coat. But then over door 8, it's got the shining sun, a circumstance in which you would think that you do not need a coat. The foot doesn't really fit into that, although the door to 19 does still fit that theme, because in looking through the door to 19th, they notice there's a real wind coming up out there, and of course it being very windy, that would be another circumstance in which you would have cause to wear a coat. So, I mean, there's something there. I don't know whether that satisfies people or not. That's the best explanation I've come up for both of those things, because I don't know why they make it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just thought of this now, but what about, and I don't think anybody's mentioned this, is what about not wanting to walk in that area barefoot, because it is in fact a barefoot, and you wouldn't want to get cut your feet on the glass there. That might not be an advisable door.
Flesh that out a little more.
Well, because the door's got a bare foot there, and it crushed under his feet. But if you're gonna walk under there, you don't want to wear. I don't know. I'm just figuring. You don't want to walk there bare feet. It's a warning not to go through that door.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of like this stone that's about to fall on the cello player or whatever in the band room.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Well, and I don't. Someone must have said this at some point, but I didn't really think about it or at least I forgot about it if they did. Over the door to 19, does that look like a human foot to people?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it does.
That's what I think he was referring to about broken glass.
It's a human foot.
What do you think it was?
What in 42, we got the painting of the bear feet belonging to a bear. Has that been mentioned before?
There you go. 5 boots and 5 feet.
Oh, man. I never thought. Yeah. You've got the extra boot.
Bare feet has been mentioned before, in reference to you, but not as a connection with room 23.
Well, there's two shoes in 23 if you really want to be a stickler about it, but.
I'm sorry.
There's 2 what?
I was saying there's 2 more shoes in room 23, so that would.
Yeah, it is. It seems very deliberate how that coat rack base resembles 2 shoes.
Oh, you don't.
I think it's 3 shoes, isn't it?
It could be 3. You can't.
I think there's a shoe pointing back. It's hard to see, I guess. I guess it's hard to be certain about it, but I think there's a 3rd shoe pointing back away. You can kind of see the edge of it over the right rim of one of the leg of the coat rack, but it's hard for me to point out in such a way that our viewers are going to be able to see.
It's sort of there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Or, I mean, even if it's not there, then he's insinuating the fact that it can't rest on 2. You have to have a 3rd one, so you would fill it in. At least I would.
But anyway, yeah, we've got all these connections between these 2 rooms, and it seems like there should be something more meaningful going on between them than what we've got. But I don't know. I don't have much to say except there's definitely a connection here. There are other interesting connections. Let me close this out. Between this room and other rooms, one of which is this room has some similarities. Why am I still screen sharing? Am I still screen sharing to people?
I'm seeing black.
Oh, that's good enough. There are similarities with this room and room 1. Now, I'm not going to get into all the maze time crap that I started up, but it is interesting. 23 is the first leg of the journey back from room 45, and if you're mapping it out, the path is in a figure 8, and it's on the opposite end from 1. They're each on opposite ends of the figure 8, and in room 1, you've got the sun coming in from the left, shining in on the doors. In 23, you've got the sun coming in from the right, shining on the doors. Room number 1, you've got that sinister word in the text, which is suggestive of left mention of the sun glaring, clues related to the sun. In 23, you've got a bunch of mentions of right. You know, he suggests they take the door on his right. There's the everything right on the ground, and there seems to be a lot of connection to the sun in this room. Again, what do you do with that? I don't know. But it seems like there's some mirror imaging going on or some relationship going on with room 1, which is on the opposite side of the path. And this also connects with room 19, maybe more than rooms usually connect to rooms or relates more than rooms usually relate to rooms they're connected to. They look out the window to 19 and they see an outdoor scene. They talk about how they see trees out there, which seems to relate fairly to what actually is outside 19. Like if you look at room 19, you can imagine someone actually looking out one of the doors from 19 and seeing out into the yard what he's describing. Mm-hmm. Now 19 is interesting because in room 19 we don't see what's out in the yard either, because what we see is just the scene that's in the portico there, and all the action in the room takes place out in the yard, so we don't see it there either. But 45 seems to be describing I'm sorry, not 45. 23 seems to be describing what's actually out there as well, which is unusual. Usually doors don't really have any visual or textual connection to what's on the other side, you know. You just kind of walk through the door and you're in a totally different place. Hmm. Oh. All right. What else do we have here?
We'll talk about the scroll for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the scroll, the best interpretation I've heard so far, and what I think is probably correct, is that the scroll offers it suggests the letter O, which is part of spelling the word shoulders, which is the part of the riddle of the path that corresponds to the trip out of the maze. The riddle of the path, of course, it includes the phrase, like Atlas, you bear it upon your shoulders. The rooms leading into the center give you the words, like Atlas, you bear it upon your, and then the rooms that lead out from 45 contain the letters that spell out shoulders. Now, it's not really clear to us exactly where all those letters come from. There's some guesswork involved. But the best candidate for O seems to be this room, and that also seems to be the best explanation of the scroll. The reason being, everything right is suggestive of the phrase okay, not because okay naturally means everything right, but because sort of the folk etymology of the term okay is that it came from the phrase all correct. It was kind of like a joke misspelling of the phrase all correct, as spelled with an O and a K instead of an A and a C. And so all correct does correspond to everything right and suggest okay. Nothing suggests a 0, and the time is suggests the phrase o'clock. So we've got okay, o'clock. The common element there seems to be O, so we'd say the scroll is suggesting the letter O. And we take that as the letter that we're going to combine with a bunch of other letters to spell out. Interesting to note that the word shoulder is used in the text here.
Yeah.
Which up until recently I've dismissed as being, well, who cares? You know, number one, no one would know to take that word out there and make anything of it. It's not really highlighted in any special way. And moreover, it says shoulder, not shoulders. And the word that's part of the riddle of the path is shoulders, not shoulder. But recently, it just, I don't know why it didn't hit me before, but it seems like an extraordinary oversight by Manson if he put the word shoulder in there as he's cluing shoulders in these rooms, and he didn't really think anything of it. I don't think that that's meant to be a clue. I don't think we're meant to take the word shoulder from that. I think it's a reference that you can pick up afterwards. And when he says, look at those two trees out there, one said, looking over my shoulder, which is not easy to do. I think that which is not easy to do is just making reference to the difficulty in finding the word shoulders in these rooms. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. That's a new interpretation. I haven't heard that before. I think most people try to take which is not easy to do and make that into some reference to the size of the guide as part of pushing the possibility that the guide might be the Minotaur or some other hulking or tall figure.
Yeah, I always did.
Yeah. But I like your interpretation as well.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Boy, we're kind of jumping around here. I'll try to hammer out this text in a legitimate way. All right. A room with 3 other doors. That's the first sentence. Interesting about that, I guess, is it seems like an unnecessary description to say it has 3 other doors. It seems to be trying to get the number 3 in there, which is interesting because then later it says, look at those 2 trees out there, when the number 2 seems to be extraneous.
You know what's funny? I've always thought in the text that there's a large number of double O's, which obviously flipped on its side is the numeral 8. There's a considerable amount of the word room in this room. They repeat it like so much, and other
as well as look. Look shows up 3 times. Look and looking.
Yeah, exactly. I always thought this is just a general comment about the text before you read the rest of it. That's what I think is cluing to 8 in the text is the double.
As well as the unusual choice of word bumbershoot instead of umbrella.
Yes, bumbershoot. That's that puts the cherry on the cake. Maze solved again, once again.
All right.
Mystery is probably going to want credit for that one. He's all about the double letters.
No, he gets credit for something else, but I'm not going to mention it until after Vince finishes the text.
Okay, cool. Interesting.
Boy, I better hurry up, too. We're taking forever on this. Sorry, my fault. All right. Looking out the windows, my feet crushed something on the floor. Obviously talking about the glass there, really. I mean, well, I don't know. Anyone have anything to say about that?
No.
No, other than the part about the barefoot stepping on it, which I said before.
Yeah, which it could be a warning about that, I guess. I think it actually just ties into the next sentence where he says, "Watch your step here, I warn them. I'm always ready to be helpful with the less important things." Suggestive that they, well, there's a couple different ways to read that. One, I guess, is that it could be a disincentive to take that door if he's saying it's not really important, the glass that's at the floor of the door. That's not the way they need to go anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that the glass has some meaning that's more important than being careful not to step on it, and so he's being helpful with the less important things by warning them about their safety.
And at that, I would add that somebody discovered, I don't know who it was, but somebody on the Abyss pointed out that, it might have been Alex, that you can get 2 pieces of glass on the left side of the ball and 8 pieces of glass on the right side of the ball, which makes for a hard clue to counter toward 28.
Yeah, I mean it does. I mean you got a 2 and an 8 there.
Yeah.
I've tried to put that together before, back before I understood the scroll to mean O, that everything right might relate to taking only the things on the right side of the ball. And I mean also you take the door you're looking for is on the right tablet, the corresponding window pane is broken on the right side of the door. But I don't think that's what that everything right is really about. So we are kind of stuck with this 2, baseball, 8, and it's not really clear why we shouldn't pay attention to that, you know?
Yeah.
Except, I guess, that it's just not as convincing a clue as the tablet and the broken window. All right, someone says, must be a real wind coming up. No, I'd say that just seems like a strange statement to me because it seems like either it is windy out there already and you just would say it's windy out there, or I don't know how you can tell that there's a real wind coming up. Am I understanding that incorrectly, or is anyone...
What is the whole thing about leaves turning upside down?
You're just overanalyzing it. I think it's already windy, and he's saying it's coming this way.
Okay.
That's what I get from it. It is windy, and he can see it because the trees outside are moving around.
Yeah, it's the trees moving around or the leaves flipping upside down or something that indicates that.
Okay. All right, that's cool. Oh, I skipped over the line here where he said, look at those 2 trees out there. I read it before. Look at those 2 trees out there, one said, looking over my shoulder, which is not easy to do. Must be a real wind coming up. Now they realize...
I'm sorry. I wanted to talk a little bit more about this.
Like like a baseball wind-up. I think that was Gentile who'd mentioned that.
Yeah, Gentile wind-up. Another thing that's going around on the Abyss, White Raven thinks that there's a solution here where you take the feet, you take my feet, and you use that as a pointer to 19, and you take wind as a pointer to the rain clouds over 28, the storm clouds, and then apparently you're also supposed to find some clue to the moon, and then by odd one in, according to White Raven, well, at least I'm extrapolating from what he said, I assume this is an odd one in solution where we're going to get sun. But I do find it a little weird that he thinks that you should use the word wind to cue, you should connect the word wind with the storm cloud over 28, as opposed to the word rain, which is in the very next line. So.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd one.
Yeah, this one is not that convincing to me so far, although maybe I'd feel better about it if I was actually racking my brain before this episode trying to find something in the text to clue moon or stars or night or space or something. So maybe it's just my frustration with that talking, but I'm not so convinced about the storm cloud and wind going together as opposed to the storm cloud and rain.
But what about the moon, though? Have we found that yet?
That's the thing. Like, if we could find some kind of clue for the moon or the stars or nighttime in the text, then you could put together some really good kind of an odd one in solution. But I'm looking for it. I can't find anything.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, you can see that there's maybe some reference to it in the text. Like when he says, "I suggested we take the door on my right," you could say, "Well, they've got the like coat rack there with the gloves on it, and the door on the right of that corresponds to the right-hand glove would be 45." But that's not really the same thing as making reference to the pictures.
Yeah, it doesn't go along with the other two references in the same way, where you have feet and reins so clearly.
Yeah.
All right, go on with the text.
Okay. Now they realized it could rain where they were going. We talked about this before. Seems, I mean, it's would reasonably clue you to go to 28, you know?
Yeah.
But I guess that seems so obvious that you'd have to really question that.
I was thinking about that, and I was wondering if the point is that if it could rain where they're going, then they're not going someplace where it's already raining, so that would send you toward the sun.
Well, that's true. Or at least.
But that's so backwards that it seems like something that Manson couldn't expect people to figure out for themselves if they didn't already know that 8 was the right door.
No, but it's not saying like it's going to rain where they're going or anything like that. It's just, and it's not even the guide suggesting it could rain where we were going. It was that just the group thinks that it could rain where they were going. Like they're just acknowledging the possibility of rain after looking outside.
No, but wait a second. If you take that clue to heart and you go to any which one of those doors, 28, 8, 45, 19, which one are you going to find an umbrella in? Maybe that's a clue in itself. The fact that you go to 8 and there's an umbrella there, they're already talking about it.
Oh, yes, definitely. Good. That's another room connection. I forgot to mention that one.
Yeah, but how can you know that from here?
Well, you don't know it from here. It's the kind of thing when you get there that it's like kind of like a confirmation. But the interesting thing is, right, no, if you go to room 8, it has that thing about make sure you take that with you, I said. You can never tell when you might need it. Take what? They wanted to know. Isn't it obvious? If you haven't been to room 23, it's not obvious if he's talking about the umbrella. But if you go from 23 to 8, then that does make sense, and it does seem obvious what he's talking about, because they just said they wanted an umbrella. Now, the interesting thing is you can make it to room 8 before you ever get to 23, and that line wouldn't make any sense. But if you go to 8 after 23, then that line can make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I really like that. That's cool.
Which is funny because you never encounter rain in the maze, even once.
Well, in room 6,
sort of, yeah. Okay, since Vince is forgetting stuff, I'm going to mention this about the scroll. This was I attribute this to Hidden Mystery because he was the last person to revive it. But
wait. Are you going to talk about how you can spell out 8 from everything right?
That's right.
Listen, I'm in the middle of going through the text. I didn't forget anything, for Christ's sake. Why are you interrupting now to say that you can rearrange the letters and everything right to spell 8? Jesus Christ. Settle down. We're almost done here. Actually, we probably won't.
Hey, Vince, don't take the Lord's name in vain.
They covered up that commandment. I don't have to follow it. Okay. We should have brought that bumbershoot with us from the coat room. All right, we already talked about how this is a reference back to 42, but the word bumbershoot, this is a huge occurrence in this book that we get the word bumbershoot. It means every time we see an umbrella, we think of it as a bumbershoot instead of an umbrella. We try to think about ways that we can make it start with the letter B, whatever. If nothing else, I don't think I ever would have even heard the word bumbershoot as a kid if it hadn't been for them using it in this book. And we use the word bumbershoot all the time in referring to umbrellas in here, and it's all because of this ridiculous page where they call it a bumbershoot.
I think I do think it's in order to get those two O's next to each other.
Maybe. I mean, it certainly seems like it has to mean something that they say bumbershoot instead of umbrella. Because
why the hell would you use that word? I had to look that up. Even as a kid, I didn't have the internet, but I looked it up in the Oxford, and I was like, oh, okay. Makes sense. There's so many of those in the damn maze.
It's a real odd one. All right, so they say, which room was that? You remember the one with the animal. Again, we talked about that. I suggested that we take the door on my right. And we talked about that. I meant, and again, this is how when you're making up your solution after you know the answer. You could read it both ways. You could say it's a false clue to 45. You could say it's a good clue to 8 because it references the right tablet and the right set of window panes and the glass on the right of the ball. I guess you can read it to be what you want. It says, and then they realized they found the door they've been seeking for so long, the entrance to, and we talked about that. So I think we're done with the text there. And I think we sort of hit most of the things in the room there. Now go ahead, Alex. Tell us about how everything right has the letters that you can spell 8 within it.
Well, you just did. So there it is. I don't know. A couple of people have said this. I don't know if it's there deliberately or maybe not. I mean, probably there deliberately, I'd say. The
problem I've got with it is that it doesn't seem to connect with anything else on the paper.
No, you're right. It doesn't. And I've also and I think back when Lewis was here, we were talking about how those G's looked like numbers. They look like the number 6 and maybe 16 in right, that kind of stuff. So we're tripping out a little bit there. It probably doesn't mean anything, but it's a good observation that 8 is in the first sentence there.
Yeah, I had another thing that I noticed about everything right when I was reviewing this that I don't think anybody has posted, and it suffers from the same problem that Vincent just pointed out, that it doesn't connect to anything else on the scroll. But I was thinking everything right. We've talked about different interpretations of the number 8, like it being the shape of the path and stuff. It's also the shape of infinity, and so that's everything right. And so you have to, the right door is the one that is represented by everything.
Oh.
So that's my contribution.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Everything right. I've the nothing on there. When I was trying to connect it to a door, I said might connect to the sun over 8, which could be taken as a 0. Actually, even the two sort of circles of light, because there's one circle of light on the floor and then another one on the wall that envelops 8. Those two circles put together could be seen as forming an 8 themselves.
Yeah, I don't see the light. I don't see, until you said it, I don't really see the light on the floor as being a circle. I feel like that's kind of a stretch.
Okay.
I wish that were true, but yeah, I feel like that's not really formed enough to.
Well, if you only see one circle, then it's a 0, and it means nothing.
Well, there you go. Perfect. The thing that was interesting about the on a related note, I don't think this is a proper episode of Maze if we don't quibble a little bit about what is probably just an accidental drawing choice. So I want to quibble about the fact that the space on the wall within the 2 rings of 8 is darker, whereas that's not true of any of the other door numbers in the room. And I don't know if that was just done to. Another one of the things that we haven't talked about that seems deliberate is the tremendous illumination over 8. Well, we sort of talked about it. The illumination over the door 8 matching with the sun and going with the general light is good theme.
I used to be a fierce advocator of that. I used to go on and on about how.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the
8 and blah blah blah, and I sort of still believe it, but obviously there's the shadow right below it from the coat rack that doesn't mesh with it. But be that as it may, my whole argument was the fact that if he had put the shadow of the coat rack at any other angle, then it would give it away too much. So for that reason, I forgave it for being sort of more subtle in its apparency.
As I see it, I don't even see the code rack really interfering with it, so that seems fine to me.
No, because Alex is saying that the light is coming from the sun on the wall, not from the window.
No, I'm not saying it's not coming from the window. I'm saying it's also coming from the sun in the picture, and because of and the others don't, right? So it's the one emanating light. 19 isn't really you don't really see that strong shadows coming from 19 other than the coat rack. And the coat rack, you know what, man? I think the coat rack is a bit of a red herring because it's not really related to any of the clues that we've talked about in this episode. Like, not one. maybe baseball gloves, wind up, that kind of stuff. But even the wind up points to 19, and that's the wrong door. I think we've sort of underestimated the amount of red herrings that are in this book, like the whole doll in 41. I think that's a red herring.
All right, but before you go on too far, I do want to say I like the idea of the sun being another light source, which I've never thought of before, but it does kind of provide an answer to my question of why the space in the rings of 8 is shaded. If the light is coming down directly from above, and if the the metal plate number or something, then that would be in shadow. So that kind of makes sense.
It draws.
Yeah, but then the shadows in the room don't make any sense. Although the shadows, in a way. What's that?
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. The shadows don't make a whole lot of sense.
But in a way, the shadows in the room don't make a lot of sense anyway if you compare them to each other. Like, the shadow coming from the coat rack is super long, suggesting that the sun's fairly low. But the shadow on the ball is pretty small, suggesting that the sun is relatively high up in the sky, It's hard to imagine a consistent or single light source that would cast both of those shadows. And also, there's no shadow from the door itself, The grid that the panes are on, if a light were shining through there, it would cast a shadow of the wood beneath the panes of glass. But there's no shadow from that.
This is something related to room 3, where there's the theme of light versus darkness, and how, in the case that you have to follow the light rather than the darkness. So in this case, the light that tells the truth, that which is, coming out of 8. But if you pay attention to the shadows in this room, you're not going to get too far. If you look at the shadow of the ball or the coat rack, you're not going to get too. I mean, it does point to the shadow does point to the 10 Commandments, so that's good, I guess. But the shadow
it doesn't point to the right commandment, though. And you're right, it goes to the
right, exactly.
Goes over the wrong door.
Yep.
I would, if we're reading the scroll as not cluing O, but as referring to 8 somehow, I would just suggest the time could relate the sun picture over 8 to the sun coming through the window, in the sense that they're depicting the same time of day, as opposed to the other pictures which are not depicting sunny weather, I guess. It's a bit of a stretch because storminess is not exactly a time. I guess if you imagine these as all being images from the same day, at some point it was sunny and then a storm came up, which is, I guess, what the text says, and then later on it was night. The picture that correctly reflects what time it is now would be the 1 over 8. But again, that's if we're saying the scroll doesn't just mean 0, which I'm not convinced that it means anything other than O.
Yeah.
Oh, is there anything? Yeah, we did kind of jump around a lot on this. Is there anything else that we have failed?
Yeah, I want to jump back to something else just briefly. Gaming Night actually described the gloves sitting on the coat rack as baseball mitts. I have a hard time seeing them that way because they don't have the sort of webbing between the thumb and the index finger, which seems sort of like an indisposable part of a baseball mitt. But wanted to see, does anybody else have any other thoughts about that, or does everybody else pretty much just think that they're baseball mitts?
No, I agree. I don't see them as baseball gloves.
Yeah, me neither. They look more like Michael Jackson's white gloves that he wore.
Well, there we go. Oh, of course, I forgot. Yes, you want to go on about that a little bit?
Yeah, Gaming Night. I have this age-old theory that the guide is Michael Jackson for numerous reasons. He's got the white gloves. He talks about royalty. Anyway, this is for another episode, or maybe you can watch one of the old ones where I go more into detail about that.
Yeah, it was basically proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
King of pop, baby.
Yeah, it's not easy to look over his shoulder because he spins around so much.
Yeah.
It almost looks like the glove on the left is making the symbol of OK or whatever too, sort of.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's in a very noticeably different position than the other hand. I like that.
Yeah.
Almost giving a thumbs up.
The right door, yeah, and it's closer to 8.
That's really cool.
Didn't notice that before, really, or I didn't notice why it would be relevant, but yeah, related to OK. That's cool.
They get a lot of weird stuff in this. I swear, this guy. If they interviewed him, he probably would be like, I don't know, be interesting to see what he say about this.
Yeah, no kidding. But what he would say is nothing.
No. Especially because he wants us to figure it out on our own.
Get off my lawn. That's what.
I had no part of that.
Only other thing I would mention. Again, no idea what to do with it, but this is another room where we've got one door slightly open. There are a number of rooms like that in the maze that I think mean something. Maybe are part of the path of the riddle of the guide or something like that. I don't know. But there are a lot of rooms where there's just one door slightly ajar, suggesting someone just came in or out.
I was gonna mention that you beat.
What's that?
You beat me to it. I was gonna mention the open door.
Oh.
You think it's just a red herring, like he wanted the shadow to touch it?
Oh, that could be. I didn't think about that. That maybe the shadow wouldn't. I think the shadow probably would have crossed it anyway. But I guess I'm not sure. I mean, maybe. I mean, all the open doors could just be red herrings, I suppose. But it happens a lot, and sometimes they're even mentioned in the text, like in 44, where they go on quite a bit about the door being opened.
They are certainly not accurate, though. I don't think there's any case in the maze where an open door versus closed doors or odd man out or what have you will ever lead you in the right direction.
Well,
yeah, but Vince floated a different idea, which I find very interesting, that it might have to do with, it might unite a different set of rooms in a different way to, clue you to the host, the guide's identity, for instance, or something else like that.
All right, well.
Yeah, but then you get places like 28 that don't have actual doors. They just have doorways, and then you would lose the path, so to speak.
Well, then you find a very elegant and simple solution to explain those, and then everything is great.
Except that 28 does have a door, although it's not slightly ajar. Remember, 28, the door to 43 is a door.
Yeah.
Not a doorway.
Hmm.
So there.
Oh, there. Are we done with 23? Is that it?
I think we are. I think unless someone has anything else to add, we are done with 23.
You have any other thoughts, Gaming Night?
No, we pretty much covered everything. That was a pretty interesting room, though.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. This one seemed to have a lot more going on than a lot of the rooms. I'm surprised we covered it in such a short time, especially considering how long I seem to talk about the text.
I think we're getting better at it. We're getting better fleshing out stuff faster.
Getting down to business a little faster, maybe. Not spending 20 minutes talking about social developments on the Abyss.
Social development. Yes, how far we've come.
All right. Well, good night, everybody. We'll probably see you sometime next week with another room that will surely have 100% solved. Good night.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be longer.